Sermon of the week, separation. Mom, how old is Dad? Why do you want to know, son? That's a strange question. Just tell me, how old is he? First you tell me why you want to know. Mom? All right, let's see. She sat down on the couch next to her son and put her arm around him. Well, he's born in, must be 5. Is that BC or AD? Our teacher says Jesus Christ was born in 4 BC. Well, let's see. Your father was born in Tarsus. Where is Tarsus? Honey, you're confusing me. When was he born? Little Polly had succeeded once again in confusing his poor mother. She finally got up, went to a desk, got a paper and ink pen, and went and sat down by her son again. Now you say Jesus was born in 4 BC? Yep. And your father was born in 5 AD. And today is what date? It's almost Passover, or Easter as the Christians call it. How do you know about Christians? She asked, her mouth dropping open. Oh, our teacher tells us about it, says we should know about other people's. Well, I better have a talk with him this week. Some of my classmates say they are Christians. And remember, the last time Dad wrote us, he talked about the Christian church. I know, I miss him so much. A tear slipped down her left cheek. I miss him too. When will he come home again? I don't know, Polly, but I do know one thing. What's that, Mom? God is with him. More tears came now to both their eyes. She wiped both their eyes with a cloth. Let's get back to your question. She began to write. Dad was born in 5 AD when your Jesus was 9. We were married in 34. When your dad was 29 and I was 32. You're older? Yes, Polly, I'm an old woman. Look at my hands. No, you're not. You're the prettiest mom in the whole world. She squeezed him and then continued. That same year when Dad was 29 and I was 32, we got married and then had that awful thing happen to him on the way to Damascus. You mean when he was blinded? Yes, so we moved to Damascus. We were there 3 years. Then you were born in 35, and then in 37 when you were 2, we moved back to Jerusalem to this very house. Well, I'm 14, so it's 49 AD now, almost Passover. I so hope your father can come home for a bit this year. So do I. Polly was calculating. 49 minus 5 equals 44. So Dad is 44, and that makes you 47. Correct. You must be a whiz in math, she said. She didn't like to hear the words 47, but had resigned herself to it. In fact, she had resigned herself to many things. Essentially, being a single parent was one of them. So why does God separate everybody? Polly's mind amazed her, but his question was very pertinent. I don't know, son, but it seems to be the pattern the world has taken. I know plenty of kids whose fathers come home every night. I'm sure you do, but God sometimes selects some fathers to do his work, and that often leads to separation. Look at Caesar, the leader of our world. He has to go to war many times to keep us all safe. He's often gone for a year or more. I think maybe God had work for us to do. But Dad's gone so much. Well, when you become of age and get married, you'll leave us and live with your wife, and you may have to even leave her at times depending on your work. Polly stared up at the ceiling. Yeah, I guess. Have you thought about what you want to be when you grow up? Mom, I'm 14. I'm already grown up. Sorry, she said, hugging him. What do you want to do when you come of age? Maybe a Pharisee like your father? No, I want to be at home. No, I'm thinking maybe being a teacher or maybe a lawyer. Well, your father's a tent maker as well as a Pharisee. Seems boring to me. No, I'm leaning toward a teacher. But soldiering is also exciting. Polly. Well, if you're a soldier, you'll be gone all the time. Why is life so hard? Honey, it's very complicated. Sometimes we just have to leave difficult things in God's hands and trust him. Which God? What do you mean? Well, there's the Hebrew god Yahweh and the Roman gods Zeus and Jupiter and the Greek gods like Apollo and Poseidon. Which one do we trust in? We were born Hebrews, so we believe in Yahweh. Her insincerity was clearly evident to him. Dad says Jesus Christ is a God. You believe in him? Honey, I believe in Yahweh and pray only to him. As you get older, you'll have to decide for yourself which God to believe in, but I think in time you will trust in Yahweh. Whoever God is, I don't like that he keeps me away from Dad so much. His mother remained silent, and another tear slipped down her right cheek. I'm not sure why, son, but there must be a reason. I think because Dad is gone so much, maybe there isn't any God you can trust. Maybe I'll trust in myself. Maybe I'll be my own God, then whatever I want will happen. She hugged her son tightly. I think the reason people are separated so much is that God has special work for each and every one of them. Your father's work is very important. He's trying to make the church better. He thinks this Jesus Christ had many good ideas, and he is trying to get the church leaders to follow some of those ideas to make a better church for all of us. What time is it? Paulie said, jumping up from the couch. His mother peered out at the sundial in the backyard. Almost 5. Paulie jumped to his feet. I got a ball game at 5. Gotta go. See ya. What about supper? Her words hung in the air. Paulie was already out the door. Hi, Mom. What's for supper? Oh, hi, Paula. I don't know. Your brother tore out to a ball game. What would you like? Oh, anything. I'm on a diet, you know. Honey, you're only 12. You don't need to. My boyfriend says I'm getting too fat. I bought some spaghetti. Nope, way too fattening. I better get going. Got a party at the dance pavilion. See ya. When will you be home? Once again, her words hung in the now cooler evening air. She stared at the empty doorway, then out at the sundial, and then toward her bedroom, which was empty every single night. Maybe Polly has it right after all. No, he's only 14. But maybe there is no God. Maybe we are the gods. God hasn't spoken to me for many years. He just keeps me lonely. She stared back at the sundial as if it might give her some information about God or the gods, but as it was every other day of the year, it remained silent. Even in its shadow, though slowly moving, was silent. Very, very silent. Separation is a strange word. If you look it up in the dictionary, you may become more confused than you were before doing so. It is stated to be the act of being moved apart, disconnection, severance, uncoupling, the state of being separated, the point of division, cessation of cohabitation, the division of something, etc. These definitions are rather diffuse and lead one to think of many different ideas, but I think one definition stands out more than all the rest. That one word is gap. When you hear that word, you immediately understand that there are two entities apart. There is a gap or space of some kind between them. In fact, the universe is full of gaps. Some of these gaps are infinite in size. I am fortunate enough to live in the new world. I doubt I'll ever see all the different galaxies and planets, even if I live for infinity. One reason is that God is creating more and more galaxies at an infinite pace. One might ask God why he is doing that. He will tell you that he is doing that because he is God, and that's what God does. He creates. One day in God's life, rather in universe time, God decided to create beings that looked like him and like his Son and like his wife, the Holy Spirit. This may have been the first time he ever created beings that looked like him. What prompted him to do so and why he chose the time of 4004 BC to do this, or whatever time you believe, we will never know. My thinking would be that it became necessary when his position as God, the creator and ruler of the universe, came into question. First, it was questioned by one of his supreme creations, the angel Lucifer. But as time went by, many more of his angels questioned him, and he wondered why they couldn't all be gods and create and rule just like him. Certainly God could give them power to create worlds and galaxies. Why did he have to be the only one? I'm sure the very first reason he gave them was that a house divided cannot stand. But clearly that answer was not enough to quash what God knew was a coming rebellion. Why he allowed such a rebellion to build is one of the great mysteries that I believe only God can answer. But I believe, along with many other questions, God will never answer it for us. God will always have mysteries that we cannot hope to understand. But in the new world we will have seen chaos, we will have seen salvation, and we will want for nothing. Plus, we'll be so busy reconnecting with people we have been separated from and so busy taking care of our new mansions and traveling, we won't ever want to or have time to question our God ever again. He and we will spend eternity closing the gap, all the gaps. The first gap was opened up by Lucifer. He initially questioned God in his own mind, but eventually got up enough courage to question him openly. Maybe God opened the door as he knew what Lucifer was thinking. If God knows every hair on everyone's head, he knows exactly what the brain is thinking all the time. Lucifer reluctantly told God what he was thinking. He told him what he wanted, that he wanted to be like God. God told him that wasn't possible. We are what we are. We can't change that, God told him. But of course, like any child, the answer was far from enough. Lucifer wanted to know more. These discussions led to open arguments, and as no one but God can keep secrets, Lucifer began talking to other angels in other worlds. This led to larger and larger meetings, and finally, when no compromise could be reached, open war broke out. And the rest, as we say, is history. No one is going to win a war against the God of the universe, but amazingly, 1/3 of all angels in the universe fought against God. And when the bloody conflict was over, God ensconced all those angels, likely billions, in one tiny galaxy, the Milky Way, the one he had just created, and the one where he now planted his likeness in the form of a human that he named Adam. God nurtured Adam along, telling him everything he could about the history of the universe and of Lucifer's rebellion and how to live and avoid such evils. Adam was taught by the creator of the universe, but Adam too was curious. How could God let such a thing happen? Adam forgot about that problem when he noticed that every being in Eden and the world had a partner. God wondered why it took Adam so long to realize this, but when he did, maybe when Adam was 40 years old, God provided Adam a partner, the most beautiful human woman that would ever grace the universe, likely created in the image of the Holy Spirit. God taught the two how to pray and warned them every day about evil, but the two were so caught up in love they scarcely listened and spent another 40 years honeymooning, as it were. Despite all his warnings and admonitions, God knew that this couple would fail him, and one day, as Eve wandered alone, she came upon that old tree of knowledge of good and evil. Her curiosity about it finally got the better of her, and she walked up to the tree and touched the trunk of it for the first time. God said she would die, but after not dying when she touched the trunk, she leaned on it for a long time. She could not reach the golden apples from where she was standing, so she tried to climb up and get one, but the trunk was rough and covered with sap. Just then she saw an apple fall from that tree. She picked up the golden orb and then dropped it when she heard a voice speak to her from the tree. First she thought it was God himself, but upon looking around, she didn't see him or his son or wife anywhere. Then she saw the head of the serpent and was shocked to see that it was talking to her and in her language. The serpent told her to pick up the apple, which she did. God watched from a distance. He knew, and Lucifer knew, that she was no match for him. And again, the rest, as they say, is history. The separation had begun. It started the first second when questions entered the mind of Lucifer several thousand years before Adam was brought into the world. The war in heaven led to the separation from their God, their ruler, their president, and 1/3 of all the angels in the universe. Literally billions of beings. This tore the heart of God nearly in two. Recovering from this to some degree, his heart nearly was torn in two again when he realized he would have to activate his plan of salvation. He would have to separate himself from his only son for 33 years, and in fact separate himself from his son in part forever, as his son would be eternally changed. Christ would forever be his son, but things would be forever different. We cannot conceive of the magnitude of this separation anxiety, but it will forever be there. Christ was also separated from his mother, the Holy Spirit, and the magnitude of that separation anxiety was likely even greater. Back to our human couple. They may have had children while in Eden, we are not told. But once Eve and then Adam took a bite out of that golden orb, things would forever change for them. They no doubt thought God would just execute them on the spot. But of course he didn't. However, the separation anxiety they felt was unbearable. Once God finished talking to them and they were escorted from the garden, they knew they would never see God nor their garden again. They assumed they would die very soon and wished they could die immediately. Turning back to look at the angel standing guard at their garden gate with a flaming sword confirmed everything. The sermon God gave them before they left about his plan of salvation from Genesis 3:15 went over their heads. It would be many years before they realized what he had told them. Once they did so, they became staunch believers in God and told everyone their story and explained in detail the beautiful plan of salvation that God had instituted. But alas, few listened, and even fewer believed. Each and every day of Adam's 930 years, the separation from God was unbearable. But he learned to cope. He began to pray and talk with God he was now separated from, and somehow he and Eve lived a long and sometimes happy life. The tragedy of Cain and Abel nearly led them to ending their own lives, but they realized the separation from their children was exactly what had happened to them. Their sin was just like Cain's. Adam and Eve did not honor their father and their mother, and Cain did the same. They realized what sin always did was separate them from someone or something they cared about deeply. God had repeated his 10 Commandments to them time and time again in the Garden of Eden, but only now, after incomprehensive tragedies, did they realize they must follow them or die. They were the only way any life, could be preserved. Over their long life, I am sure they repeated these ad infinitum to their children and everyone they knew or met. But Adam would die in 3074 BC, after a 930-year life, and in less than 930 more years, 726 to be exact, God could only find one man in the entire world who believed in him. In 2348 BC, God was forced to take drastic action, save the one human who believed in him and believed in preserving life, and flood his precious planet Earth in order to preserve humanity, preserve his plan of salvation, and preserve his universe. The star of Paul's book of 1 Corinthians is chapter 13. Indeed, it may be the star of the whole New Testament, challenging John 3:16 for that honor. It's called the love chapter, although the word love is not used even once. Instead, Paul uses the word charity. Charity is an interesting choice by Paul. The definition given in the dictionary is also interesting. An organization or person voluntarily providing help and kindness to others. Again, the word love is not used. Maybe Paul thought the word love was overused as it is today. The comment, "I love my car," does not mean what it says. I may like my car or be proud of my car, but I don't actually love it. Or maybe Paul thought the word love had too many definitions as well. What he wanted was the word that would indicate supreme caring for other humans. And in 13 short verses using 274 words, Paul defined love. He defined the greatest power in the universe. Of the 788,280 words contained in the Bible, Paul used 274 to reach the pinnacle, the essence of the Bible, of humanity, of love. And the last 16 in 1 Corinthians 13:13 are the clearest and most concise. And now abideth faith, hope, and charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. John 3:16 contains 25 words, but the most interesting fact is that Mr. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address contains 272 words, where Paul's charity chapter contains 274. Paul visited Corinth toward the end of his second missionary journey in 50 A.D. He stayed there for 18 months, Acts 18:11, and founded a church there. He finished his journey by going through Ephesus, Jerusalem, and Antioch. In 54 AD, he began his third missionary journey, traveling to Ephesus. It is here that he writes the book of 1 Corinthians. Corinth was a bustling city on an isthmus that connected the huge Peloponnese Peninsula with the main body of Greece. It lay about halfway between Sparta on the peninsula and Athens on the main body of Greece. Thus it was a crossroads for sea routes. But it was also a very corrupt city. The church Paul founded was in trouble. It was rife with division and separate groups following Paul, Peter, Apollos, and Christ. This was the most disturbing to Paul, and he set about writing the church a letter from Ephesus, 180 miles east of Corinth. It is the only one of his epistles that does not begin by commending the believers. The book is in part an answer to a letter sent to him by the Corinthian church. His letter defines the problems that the church and in fact humanity has, and it tells them how they should deal with those problems. What is amazing is that Paul, who had not been in Corinth for 3 years, separated from his family, his friends, and all the churches he had founded, was still respected to such a degree. His words were read, heard, and taken to heart repeatedly. Corinth was no exception. The people believed and followed his words. You say, how can that be? They were far from him, and communication was poor at best in the first century A.D. The churches were essentially separate entities once Paul left them. There can only be one answer to this question. Paul's words were inspired. Humans cannot express what love really is with such clarity, yet Paul did it in 274 short words, and Mr. Lincoln did it in 272. No, these are words directly from God. Only the God of the universe knows what love really is. Only He can express it in so few words, and only can He preserve His words on the corrupt, confused, and evil planet that His beloved earth has become. We see in Paul the ultimate separation from his family. We aren't told who his mother and father are, but they were from Tarsus. Paul had a sister and a nephew, Acts 23:16, and he made countless friends throughout the known world. I'm sure everyone in the known world had heard of him. I'm not sure who we could compare him to in today's world. Maybe the likes of Elvis, JFK, Einstein, Princess Diana, Mandela, Gandhi, or Disney. Everybody knew them. They all had faults. They all wanted to make the world a better place. But they all were very lonely people. They worked tirelessly, sacrificing their own peace and happiness to help humanity. Like Paul, they all succeeded. Why is that? Why do we as humans spend so much time away from one another? The reason is simple. We are given tasks by God. He inspires us to make His world better, to help His precious humans become better humans. Well, what does better mean? We are created essentially perfect at birth, but alas, evil has pervaded our environment, our world, and to overcome its power, we need to get better each and every day. God provides us with talents and an agenda and encourages us to do them. In the perfect Garden of Eden, He gave Adam tasks. He was to care for the animals and trim the garden. We also have tasks, each and every one of us. If we do these tasks, our life will become better. But if we waver and wander off, things go south pretty quickly. Eve wandered off, and Adam and Eve were soon overcome by sin. How do we overcome this separation that evil has caused? We are 6,000 years out from separation from our God, and daily life separates us from each other, often on a permanent basis. How do we overcome the anxiety of separation? The answer is repeated time and time again in your Bible. Do the tasks God puts before you. Maintain your love for those you cannot be with. Communicate with them when possible. Pray to God daily for the peace that passeth all understanding, that Paul writes about in Philippians 4:7. The peace that will conquer any separation anxiety. God knows we have anxiety. His anxiety is exponentially greater. He has been separated from the billions of humans and angels he created and from his Son. There will always be scars in all of us, just like those in Christ's hands, but the soon-to-come reunion will wipe away all anxiety, all tears. We simply won't have time for tears as we spend eternity reconnecting with all the people we have come in contact with and all the people we love. Make a serious effort to quash your anxiety by making your world a better place. God is ever ready to help you do this. Just ask Him. The reward will be the fact that you may influence others to do the same and provide them their own route to the soon-to-be new earth. The "I just can't" excuse simply does not wash. All of us have had troubles. All of us have had insurmountable troubles. But I dare say few have had the troubles that Paul did. He left home to study in Jerusalem. Then he became an enforcer for the cruel Roman government. He killed many, including women and children. A child killer does not do well in our world. The Jews were afraid of him. He did not shed a tear as he watched the stoning to death of the young man named Stephen. God had finally had it with this guy and blinded him. But even with this resume, Paul turned his life around. He ignored his own needs and set out to make the world a better place. How and why anyone would listen to such an evil man is hard to fathom. But Paul would not give up. He grabbed hold of his cloak, the cloak of Jesus Christ, and refused to let go no matter what happened to him. And to this day, he is considered one of the world's greatest prophets. And as he sat in Ephesus in 54 AD, composing the 274-word definition of what love is, he still did not know if it was enough. He did not know if his faith would be sufficient enough to allow him to passage into the new earth God had promised him. 1 Corinthians 15:9 speaks to this. For I am the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. Paul knew how evil he had been, and knew he should be forever eliminated from the universe. But Paul believed that one man could overcome his evil and the evil of the entire world, and he prayed daily that his faith combined with that one man's sacrifice would forever end Paul's own separation anxiety. That one man was born of a virgin out of wedlock in a freezing cold horse stable in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere. His life was immediately threatened, and he was dragged even further from his hometown to a godless country. He should have been slaughtered by the king, but escaped. He was raised in a poor family by his stepfather and mother. His siblings came to hate him. His father died when he was young, and the carpentry business failed. He then hit the road to see his cousin, the cast-off preacher. But his cousin was killed by his own king, so this man hit the road taking over his cousin's preacher business. He found some ragtag friends, and he marched around the country as a homeless man for 3 years, preaching about a God who the world did not believe existed. After all this, he was outcast from his own people and deserted by his friends and family, despite his best efforts to make his world a better place. After being nearly flogged to death, he was put on trial repeatedly. He was not allowed to provide any evidence and had no attorney to defend him. Finally, his government, fearing a full rebellion by his own people, executed him on a little rocky hill far from his hometown. His own people and his own government did everything they could to blot out this homeless man's name from history. I challenge anyone to say that he had a rougher life than this man. I challenge anyone to say that they overcame as much as this man. I challenge anyone to say they had as much separation anxiety as this man. I challenge anyone to say they did more to make this world a better place than this man. Paul never met this man, but he knew him, probably better than anyone in the history of the world. 1 Corinthians confirms this. For I am the least of the apostles, 1 Corinthians 15:9. But now is Christ risen from the dead, 1 Corinthians 15:20. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive, 1 Corinthians 15:22. Why stand we in jeopardy every hour, 1 Corinthians 15:30. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed, 1 Corinthians 15:51. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? 1 Corinthians 15:55. But thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 15:57. The chapter that will get the star in Paul's crown is probably the most famous in all the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13. In this instance, 13 is the luckiest number of all. Interestingly, Paul does not use the L word at all in this chapter. He instead substitutes the word charity. The word charity is given many definitions, but the best may be generosity toward others. Like the golden rule Christ provided us with in Matthew 22:37-40, we are to love our neighbor as ourselves. Paul borrowed the word charity from his master and used it to define what love is. Number 1. Great communicators must have charity. Number 2. Smart people must have charity. Number 3. Rich people must have charity. Number 4. Proud people must have charity. Number 5. Type A personalities must have charity. Number 6. Sinners must have charity. Number 7. Patient people must have charity. Number 8. Leaders must have charity. Number 9. Prophets must have charity. Number 10. People entering the new earth must have charity. Number 11. Children must have charity. Number 12. The illiterate must have charity. Number 13. We must all have charity. The one essential for life is charity. Genesis 1, Exodus 20, Psalm 23, Matthew 22, John 3, and 1 Corinthians 13. Shout it to the world. Shout it to the universe. The greatest of these is charity. Strike one. The ump shot up his hand, pointing to the sky with one finger. The batter said nothing as he took a few practice swings, waiting for the next pitch. Pitcher stared in, got the sign, wound up, and sent a screaming fastball toward the plate. It was clearly high and inside, and the batter hit the dirt, narrowly missing getting hit. In fact, the pitch knocked off his cap. Ball, the ump said. That one hit me. 1-1, play ball, the ump said. Come on, ump, the batter said. One more word and you're out of here. The batter shut up and stared out at the impatient pitcher. He wound up and sent another fastball toward home. The ball was clearly low. Strike. 1-2, the ump said. The batter's face turned all shades of red, but he said nothing. The ump waved for the pitcher to pitch. The pitcher let another pitch go, again a fastball. He knew this hitter was above average and he wasn't going to get beat on some junky curveball. The ball sailed toward the plate on a rather high trajectory. However, the batter knew it would be called a strike, and against his better judgment he took a mighty swing, knowing he would miss it and strike out. But everyone in the little bleachers and on the field heard the crack of a bat hitting the ball. The batter stood and watched as his drive sailed deep into right field. "Run!" everyone screamed to the batter, who seemed hypnotized. Finally he headed for first base at a slow home run trot. In the world of 14-year-old baseball there is a diversity of talent, and almost always the player with the least talent was placed in right field. Today was no exception. The very short, fat right fielder at first did not even see the ball. His teammates were all screaming at him and pointing. Finally, despite the blinding evening sun, he saw it and started running toward where he thought it would land. He was the slowest kid on the team, but he kept on running. He kept his eye on the ball, not realizing he and it were closing in on the 3-foot-high right field fence. The first base coach urged the batter to pick up the pace, realizing this ball might not clear the wall and in fact might be caught. The batter ran a little bit faster, keeping his head down. The right fielder, the ball, and the right field wall soon came to an identical point on the globe known as Earth, with predictable results. Well, almost. As the ball closed in on the right fielder, he reached for it, and somehow, some way, it hit his glove. But of course, at that same instant, the right fielder hit the wall running at full speed, which wasn't very fast for him. The ball, not liking the situation, bounced straight up in the air. The right fielder hit the wall and flipped over the 3-foot wooden wall, landing on his back, spread eagle, as they say. The ball took a liking to this and plopped down right in the right fielder's glove. It did a little jig and then decided to come to rest. All his teammates raced out to celebrate with their hero. The batter stepped on home plate, not seeing the scenario that played out in right field. The umpire raised his thumb in the air. "You're out. Game over." The scoreboard read, "Home 2, visitors 1." The dejected batter walked over and sat down on the bench. None of his teammates said anything. There was nothing to say. The batter noticed a man sitting at the other end of the bench who he did not recognize. He thought he must be the groundskeeper waiting to clean up. The man slid over to him. "Hi, nice hit." The batter said nothing. "You know, sometimes you don't win." "Yeah, seems like we never do." "Well, you gotta keep trying." There was something in the man's voice that jogged the batter's memory. "Yeah, I think I'll quit this game, never get anywhere." "God would want you to keep trying." "God, there's no such thing. I pray he never hears. No, I'm on my own, and I'm my own God," the batter said, his face turning red once more. "You know, I thought that once myself." "Good for you. I gotta go." The batter picked up his glove, but not his shiny red bat. The man picked it up. "Mind if I walk with you?" "Sure, whatever. But I gotta get home. Mom will be waiting. Dad's gone." The two walked briskly along as the evening air began to chill. "Where is your dad?" the man asked. "Don't know. He's off preaching somewhere. Never see him. He doesn't care about us. I've encouraged Mom to find us a new dad, but she never will." "Oh, he's a preacher," the man said. "Yeah, or something. I think he's up in Greece now." "Greece? That's a faraway place. Dangerous, too, now that Rome has taken over." "How do you know so much?" the batter said. "Been a lot of places, seen a lot of things." "What work are you in? Baseball player?" "Used to be. Then a soldier, now a preacher." The dark evening light slowly began to brighten. The batter now stopped. "Let me look at you." He stared into the face of the man that he knew as his dad. "Dad!" he shouted. He hugged him. "You're home. Where have you been?" "As I say, I've been in Greece. Just stopped into Jerusalem to see you and your sister and your mother. Can't stay long. Much work to do. But I'm so happy to see you. That's okay. I'm just glad you're all right. Yes, I'm all right. God provides, the man said. Dad, I got a question for you. Yes, son, what is it? Dad, do you believe in God? As the twilight sky turned into darker, cool evening, the father of the baseball player answered his son's question. As they walked toward their home, where only charity ruled.